I think I'd like to start by asking Tom Shelley, who's actually involved in a company that's building a private space station, to tell us first how that's going, where are we with Haven Demo and Haven 1, and B, how do you build the business for a private space station?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us here. I will start out with a short introduction to VAST. We are a relatively new company, so just make sure everybody in the room is familiar with what we're working on. But we were founded in 2021. We have a single funder and founder, Jed McCaleb, who has set an ambitious goal of being able to allow humans to explore very deep into space. At the moment, after 6 or 12 months of living in microgravity, the human body doesn't cope so well. So his vision is to be able to create artificial gravity space stations to allow humans to explore deeper. But in order to do that, you have to first learn how to build space stations. And there is an opportunity that with NASA and the ISS partners deorbiting the ISS in the next few years. And NASA is helping to fund commercial space stations. And so that's VAST's immediate objective is to win the contract from NASA to start to build the replacement for the ISS. But in order to do that, we have to demonstrate to NASA our capability. And we're a little bit late to the game. There are others in this market as well. And so we said we would leapfrog what they're doing by getting a minimum viable space station in orbit as quickly as possible. And that is called Haven 1. Haven 1 is going through development at the moment. We're based in Long Beach. We have about 1,000 people. And the development of that space station is going very well. The main structure of the station was welded together a few weeks ago, sent out for pressure testing, so the structure is viable, and it's just returning to our Long Beach facility to start the rest of the integration. And in parallel to that, we have been Haven Demo, which you referenced, is a satellite that we launched just this past weekend. It was a 500-kilogram satellite that was launched on a SpaceX bandwagon launch. And the purpose of the satellite was to demonstrate a lot of the systems and subsystems that will ultimately go into Haven 1 space station, but to demonstrate them on orbit for the first time. So our power generation battery systems, our thruster system, all of the flight avionics and space-to-ground communications. And so I'm very pleased to say that mission launched on Saturday, and the initial space-to-ground tests have been incredibly successful. We shared, please do check out our social media accounts. We've got some 4K video that has been sent back down from Haven Demo over the course of the last couple of days. And so
I think I should say we should not be so jaded sitting here as we are in Florida not to give a round of applause to people who just got their first satellite up.
Thank you. On behalf of the team at VAST, that's greatly appreciated. And so overall, our business is going well from a technical perspective. We are making the progress that we're anticipating. And then to answer your question from a business perspective, things are going very well as well. There are really 3 different distinct markets that we're targeting. One is government agency customers, and so NASA being the primary customer with an immediate objective for us to try to reach. But we're in a lot of dialogue with other government agencies about opportunities for them to fly astronauts to Haven 1. We've also submitted a proposal to NASA for their private astronaut mission opportunities, and we're waiting to hear back from NASA as to who the winner of those next 2 opportunities are. But we very much hope that we will win those. And then in dialogues with those same agencies about what their future use requirements are for commercial space stations.
When you say other government agencies, do you mean other agencies of the American government or other governments' agencies?
Yes, both. Both.
Because I noticed I noticed that Greg, our kind host, mentioned the idea of sending Space Force officers, or they're not. There's a term for people who work in Space Force. Are they Guardians.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience.
The Guardians of the Galaxy. Are you in conversation with the Space Force?
We're in conversations with everybody and anybody who's interested in sending humans to space in the next few years. And that, yes, of course, that includes other areas of the US government, but also government overseas, non-US government agencies as well. So there are obviously a number of governments who are involved in the ISS, and they have to plan for their future without ISS as a destination for their government agency astronauts. And there are others who aspire to be, to have human spaceflight programs and are looking at the opportunities that exist on ISS. They have been great as priming the market, but we're going to hopefully be able to deliver a greater capacity for accommodating government agency astronauts as well on Haven. The second market that we're really looking at is the research and science market. So ISS has been a tremendous test bed. I'm sure there's people in the room who can attest to that and share successes and success stories more than I can. But we're looking to try to build on that and provide a new environment for the continuation of research, but also for the application of that research. And there's a lot of new companies that are growing up using knowledge that has come out of the ISS and trying to build businesses out of that. And so we're talking to those entities as well. And then my particular passion, which is private individuals. So before VAST, I was at a company, Space Adventures. I helped a number of private individuals visit the ISS. And I'm in dialogue with a number of individuals because Haven 1 is a destination for private individuals as well.
Oh, that's very helpful. So, but that was a yes on Space Force then.
Yes on Space Force, yeah. but I can't say anything more than that. Other than
that's fine.
Of course, if they're interested, then we're able to accommodate.
Rick, maybe you'd help us put this into the broader context of American and other efforts to create commercial destinations in orbit.
Well, first thing I do want to say, because we've had like a flurry of news in the last couple of days, I want to thank Mr. Duffy for his service and welcome in Jared Isaacman. And you should be calling your senators. It's amazing to actually have somebody who's basically not controversial and has done a private space program coming in. And I also want to thank Elon, for basically discovering in the last couple of days what Jerry O'Neill laid out in 1974 about using space resources and all of that. So please read The High Frontier so you understand what I'm talking about. But in terms of these facilities coming online, we need to go from this government research entity into what I call the orbital street phase. And that's going to require a variety of facilities. And I do see that at first, companies like VAST, all the others, are going after every customer they can, as you just asked in your last question. Anybody who can come, right? But I was just thinking about it a little while ago. It's like, I don't really want to have a biolab in the room next to my hotel room. And, just in case. I mean, not that anything weird would go on there. But I think in time, what we're going to see is these specialization facilities. Some facilities are going to be good at this. Some are going to be good at other things. And we're going to see this sort of breaking up into these different markets, just like we have, here on Earth.
Yeah, except that we actually have the proven markets here on Earth. This is still a matter of very unproven markets.
Yeah, and that's why you get anybody you can to get started, right? You've got to get the revenue coming in. One of the great things that I love about what VAST is doing is they're flying something, right? Now, Axiom was able to do something. Starlab can make a claim that they have something attached to the ISS. And when you're engaged in investment type stuff, one of the things is like, get your thing out there, whatever it is. Quit designing. Show us that it works. And so I celebrate what you guys did just recently.
And when I asked you also about other nations other than the United States, one other nation already actually has a space station. Do you think that other nations will want to have sovereign space stations to create the basis for commercial space stations, some sort of like Greater Luxembourg up in the sky? Or is it really a very American sort of thing, wanting to build space stations?
No, Luxembourg, it'd be like a little tiny space station, a lot of power. Now, yeah, I think that they will. I think we're going to just see all kinds of delineations, all kinds of varieties of what happens. And I don't know if the Chinese are going to, do the usual shtick that they do, which is like make their space station cheaper and, mass produce them from a production line, because I think they have their eyes in another direction. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of variety. And I think at first, though, again, it comes back to the U.S. is leading. We've got 3 or 4 fairly well-funded space stations that are absolutely credible. And I think they're going to get in there and, lease to nationals, lease to countries of different sorts, as long as it's politically okay here in the U.S.
Katina, what do you think is the basic answer to our question that we've been tasked with? How do you build a business case for human-tended objects in orbit?
Yeah, I think that's, a very valid question. And profitability is always something that's in the back of everybody's mind. I mean, at the end of the day, even the folks at Vast have to sometimes answer to a financial statement. So it's easy to be critical from that aspect, right? But I think what's so amazing about space and wonderful is that we can have these longer time horizons and have these big visions and go out and chase them. So I think how you build it is you start with the vision, start with the end in mind, and sort of a build it and they will come, right? And similar to what we saw with launch, we didn't have a ton of launch capability available for quite a while. And, the last, I would say 10 or even 5 years, we've seen launch capacity significantly grow. And from that, new satellite constellations and other orbital companies and projects and services emerge from that. So I'm of the opinion, build it and it'll come.
And what does RKF get out of that?
So RKF, we predominantly are specialized in wireless communication with currently a focus on RF. Design. So we do wireless communications from, I like to say, from the ground and beyond. So really no limit on where that communication is happening. So that's really where the majority of the team kind of sits. Where I sit is transaction advisory and really deep dive studying these markets and providing those insights to whether it be potential investors or folks in the M&A consulting communities.
Right. So going back to Rick's point, are you able to serve all those different markets with the same sort of havens, Tom? Or do you have to, is your vision to build a whole series of these things, thus using lots of wireless communication within a fairly near-term timescale?
So Haven 1 is really a demonstration of capability, our ability to manufacture, launch, and then operate a space station. And it has a finite lifespan. It's going to be in orbit for up to 3 years, and of that, a maximum of 40 days can be crewed, and we're nominally splitting that up into 4 10-day missions. But it's a very much a one-size-fits-all because it's our very first foray. But our plan for Haven 2, which makes up our proposal to NASA, is for a series of modules to be launched. And exactly what the capabilities of each module, because basically when you're building a space station and it's you're you're keeping humans alive in space, there is a baseline technology of what that station looks like, an ability to generate power and deliver power to whoever the users are of that. But how exactly the station is outfitted inside, whether it's optimized for crew, whether it's optimized for biological research or some other, that's a discussion that we're having with customers at different levels. To try to understand what the market requirements are, and then that will inform ultimately what we launch at the end of the day. So we're building the foundation for what is really a modular space station that can be manufactured at a good competitive price, certainly when compared to space stations in the past. And it's really now up to the user community and for VAST to work together to determine what the overall capability of that space station will be. Now, NASA has set out some of its requirements, and they've been very clear about that. And so we're working initially to NASA's set of requirements.
But as I understand it, and I don't follow these things as closely as I'm sure all of you do, the equivalent of commercial crew for commercial LEO is at the moment not really budgeted. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I will apologize and say I'm not the appropriate person to comment on NASA's budget allocations.
Okay. Well, luckily I have an inappropriate person to comment just to my right. Rick, what's going on here?
Thank you. It's the best compliment I've had in hours. I don't think there is a program for space station or the moon even, either of the great agenda items that are ahead of us right now, that is really modeled after commercial crew, COTS, CCDEV as we call it. And it's a great model. It kind of worked, and I'm actually thrilled about it because in '95 I testified on the Hill and I called for all private transportation of the station and all replacements of the station to be commercial. So it only took 30 years, but yeah, we're getting there. I think that there is it's almost like the COTS model, CCDEV model was an aberration. And then the big aerospace type machine kind of wants to swing back towards the old way of doing things. And so those who are advocates, those who care about these kind of things are going to have to keep pushing it that way. And we need to be able to have a multiplicity of stations. That's critical. There's
we here being
the people of Earth, I'm going to just go with.
Okay.
Those of us who are trying to get out there, those who want to see the breakout. And, for example, I was looking at something recently about the difference between certification and qualification. Certification is going to be like if NASA certifies that these stations meet its specific requirements to carry NASA astronauts. Then there's the term qualification, which is closer to what you see in the commercial world, where you kind of have a third party come in who's disinterested, because obviously NASA has an interest because it's going to be giving money to all of these folks. And we have to get away from that and start getting towards more of the private sector commercial approach to building buildings. One thing we constantly forget is space stations, yes, they're highly specialized. They are very carefully designed. There's life support, all of that, but they're basically buildings. And if we start modeling the way we do things in space as we get past this first stage on the way that we do things here on the Earth, I think we're going to be able to accelerate the growth.
So you're saying that the model for space stations is fundamentally different from the model for launchers, because those aren't basically buildings, despite the fact that we always refer to them as skyscrapers that you can or cannot catch with chopsticks.
Yeah, but again, going back to the COTS model, that worked because the way it was, to simplify it, it's like as long as you can get our astronauts up here, we're going to help you develop it, give you some funds to develop it, and then if you can, and then kind of switching mode to being a customer, and say if you get our astronauts up here, basically alive, that would be good, and we will pay you X amount for those. So helping these stations get rolling and then switching to a customer mode says, okay, we want to buy 3 racks, or we want to perform these experiments. Rather than retaining that sort of dominant, controlling, we're going to tell you what the color paint is on the inside of your facility sort of thing that NASA's used to doing. And I think NASA's perfectly capable of that. There's some great people at NASA who get this, if they can be allowed to interact with companies like Tom's.
Katina,
And just to clarify, so NASA does have a program of record, the CLD program, which is to fund the replacement for the ISS. What I can't comment on is the
is
current
whether there's any money
the
in
political nature of some of the discussions around the current, whether it's the president's request or Congress's request. I don't know. I don't have that level of detail, but there is very much a program that we are looking forward to participating in.
And my job is to say things that he can't as well.
We obviously really invite you here just for your charming personality, but we have noticed that. We have noticed that. Katina, one thing that I'm struck about in these discussions of lots and lots of commercial space stations, before we should bear in mind that we've actually definitely shown that there's a commercial use for any of them. One of the things that's interesting to me about the International Space Station is that it was international. It was conceived, some people would not be happy with the way it was conceived, but it was conceived as a way of having peoples from very different parts of the Earth work together in orbit. Do you have any worry, and I'm asking you first, but I'm happy to hear from the gentleman on the panel, do you have any worry that if all the space stations become focused on doing their thing, that sense of being what Rick called we the people of Earth might be eroded, that space will be a lot of little buildings on a hillside, not on a hillside, little buildings all doing their own thing. And that part of the vision that has been, to me, the most inspiring thing about when I happen to look up and see the space station pass through the sky, that might be lost, that it becomes just an industrial estate in orbit?
I think there's really a possibility there for folks that end up being in orbit to kind of be their own thing as well. So I think it depends what point in time we're discussing. If it's near term, then I think there's still going to be a strong connection with the Earth. But as we push the boundaries and go further into orbit or the moon or Mars and beyond, I think there's going to be an identity shift where, sure, maybe Earth is the origin that we know, but I could see identity shifts happening and different groups and coalitions forming.
It's fascinating. I'm intrigued by the other question. We've been talking about space stations, and the assumption on this has been that they would be crewed or at least crew tended. But looking out a little bit, and maybe this goes rather against what your real job is, Tom, because you're about getting people onto them. In the long run, are space stations things with people on, or are space stations things where nice humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots do the sort of things that Rick was talking about? Put the experiments in the rack, take them out. In the long run, are space stations a thing for people or a thing for lights-off manufacturing?
No, I think that they're very much a place for people, because if you look at one of the markets we're addressing, private individuals, you can't replace private individuals who are going for experience of a lifetime and to enjoy the wonders of space. You can't replace them with robots. And some of the work that the stations enable, I think, require you can systemize some elements of research, but there are other elements of research where you really need the human interpretation of what they're seeing with their eyes in order to make true and rapid advances. And we're starting to see a shift back to the model where researchers are being trained as astronauts rather than astronauts being trained as researchers. So if you take a lab-trained, experienced technician or microbiologist and they are allowed to fly to space, they can actually provide far greater insights than an astronaut who is very skilled but is not a microbiologist. And I think you would say the same with a humanoid robot is not going to deliver the type of insights that you can really get by flying an expert.
Yeah, he's going to use or she or it is going to use a lot fewer it's going to use a lot fewer consumables, though.
That's very true. That's very true. And so there is definitely a case for uncrewed activity in space, and we're starting to see that with other ways in which some research is being done on small spacecraft that are going up, running their automated processes, and then coming back down again. And I think there is a place and there is a market for both, and there is a different economic case for each. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So did you?
No, I agree. And, the first commercial space facility that was ever proposed was former astronaut Joe Allen, the Industrial Space Facility. And it was actually shot down by NASA.
Shot or shot?
Shot down in a political way,
Right.
let's say. And made a little bit of news at the time because NASA was trying to commercialize ISS, and here's this guy doing this. But there is an argument for free flyers. When you get into the microgravity, the vibrations, things like that of having humans on board, when you're getting into very, 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 very fine manufacturing type stuff, you really don't want to have that. You want it to be free flying. I could see a non-human capable facility, maybe even tethered to a vast station. And you're manufacturing, but you're still able to go do human oversight, for example. But, microchips, crystal growth, all these types of things are very, very sensitive. And so I think we're going to see both as well. I think we agree.
Katina, if you were a customer, as a, I don't know if you were interested in being a private space explorer, but if you were a customer, what would you want from the space station that you went to?
Really good waste removal, clean water.
That's very practical.
That's good.
Of course, all of the practical things. And I think having a nice window would be great too. And kind of, I think it was Rick, you made this point about, maybe you might not want to be by the waste removal part of it or certain experiments that are higher risk. So I think having some safeguards around that, and if I'm going up there as, say, just a regular consumer, those are some things that I would probably think about. But I do think eventually we'll see some specialization in the different space stations that are launched.
And one last question. Rick, you've talked about a string of pearls. Do you imagine space stations having, as other sorts of space vehicles do for specific reasons, all being located in a similar set of orbits? Do you imagine it as a place that people can get from A to B? Is there any sense of, you talked about these as houses in space, is there any sense of neighborhood, or are they all just really atomistic?
I think it could be both. And I did want to mention, as to what I would want, and this is kind of a plug for VAST, actually, no charge, but I would want gravity. And one of the things I love about what VAST is doing is they're moving towards rotating artificial gravity. And I think that's the real future of human habitation in space.
Okay, well, I have just realized that although I haven't been able to see the clock, it is beginning to say 000. So I would thank the panel for that. I think it's a fascinating area. I would actually like to be able to go to space, look out of my window, have my waste properly disposed of, but also move down the street and have a look at all these other interesting things that are going on. So I'm very much in favor of the co-orbital model, but that's purely a personal preference. Thank you all very much indeed. That's been a fascinating discussion. Great way to start our afternoon. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.